Welcome back to the Becoming Lucid series. Today, we are diving deep into the connection between the fractures we see in the world and the shadows we carry inside. We're going to ask a pretty provocative question. What if the enemy you see out there is really just a part of you calling you back home?
We're starting with this because it cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? What if all these huge conflicts, these us versus them battles that define our world, aren't what they seem? What if they're just a massive projection of a part of ourselves that we've just refused to look at?
Now, before we go any deeper, I've got to clear something up from our last explainer. We talked about how truth fears no inquiry, which is a core idea for us. But then, kind of ironically, we presented a concept, the assemblage point, as if it were settled science. So we're correcting that right now, because questioning our own stories, well, that's exactly what this work is all about.
So let's be super clear. The assemblage point is not literal physics. It's a powerful story metaphysic that comes from the work of Castaneda. It's a fantastic way to talk about how our perception gets kind of glued to just one version of reality. In the fictional world we're going to talk about, it gets remixed into this cool quantum-flavored fantasy tool. But for us right here, we're treating it as a playful lens, not as gospel.
And really, that's our invitation to you for this entire explainer. If this whole idea of looking past the surface-level fights resonates with you, then follow along. We're going on a journey to remember, and I mean that literally, to put the members, the pieces of the self, back together into a whole.
All right, Section 1, the world in a mirror. You look out and you see a world that's fractured, right? It's split into all these opposing sides. But what if that world is just reflecting something back at us? What if the brighter our own light, our certainty, our rightness shines, the darker and bigger the shadow it casts on everyone we decide is the other?
And that leads us to the biggest question of identity you can ask in this hyper-divided age. Are you just this temporary, separate little fragment, this ego that's defined mostly by what it's against? Or are you actually an essential part of an interconnected whole that is desperately trying to remember itself?
And this is the machine of projection and action. It's how it works. We build these little silos of identity. My side is principled, we're brave, we're correct. Their side, oh, they're brainwashed, cowardly, maybe even evil. Experienced practitioners know this isn't just a disagreement. This is the engine of tribal warfare, and it's fueled by projecting our own unowned darkness. Section 2. 3 paths to remembering. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do you actually walk the path back to wholeness? Well, there are 3 primary ways to start integrating these fragments back into one. Here's the practical toolkit. First up, dreams. They offer these direct, unfiltered glimpses of that interconnected whole, a place where the lines between you and me and them just blur. Second, memory. This is where we can consciously go back and re-story our past, moving beyond the simple hero or victim narrative. And third, a shared story, which gives us a kind of sandbox, a safe place to practice all these ideas. Now, for our purposes, that shared map is the Phillip Aisling canon. Just think of it like a science fantasy playground. It's a space where we can explore all these complex ideas about identity and shadow and integration, but in a really structured and engaging way. In this story's world, it's well established that dreams are way more than just random brain firings. They are literal glimpses into the wider reality of the multiverse, a direct line to that bigger whole we've been talking about. This framework also gives us a really useful name for our inner conflicts, Draith attacks. And these aren't some external monsters. No, Draiths are shadow beings that bubble up from a fractured sense of self. It's a perfect metaphor for the personal shadow that every single one of us has to face.
And the story doesn't just show you the problem, it gives you a tool for the solution. There are these magical wards, like the Nagwagan, and they aren't used to fight the shadows, they're used to integrate them, to literally put the fractured pieces of the self back together and become whole again. It's such a powerful symbol for real, active inner work.
So if this way of looking at inner work through dreams, through memory, through story is starting to click for you, this is a really great moment to subscribe and officially join us on this whole journey of remembering.
Okay, Section 3, practicing a wider identity. We've gone through the theory, we've explored the concepts, now it's time to get our hands dirty and move from the idea of it all to direct inner work that you can actually do.
So here are 4 things you can start doing today. First, spot the projection. When you feel that tribal loyalty kick in, just pause and ask yourself, is my group's bright light casting a shadow that's turning those other people into monsters? Second, consciously shift your view.
The person you disagree with isn't your enemy. They are another fragment of the exact same whole you are. Third, in a dream journal, just start tagging, just noticing any us versus them moments. And finally, take one memory from your past and try to remember it, but from a place of oneness, seeing everyone in it, including yourself, as just one piece of a single unfolding story.
And that brings us to section 4, an invitation to wholeness. Because after all that intense insight and inner work, the most important step is integration. It's an invitation to just rest in this idea of wholeness for a bit.
Let this thought really land. The parts of yourself you don't like, the people out in the world that just trigger you, they're not obstacles you have to defeat. We know from practice that they are invitations. They are signposts pointing the way back home to a complete integrated self.
And here's maybe the most important part of all. You do not have to figure all of this out right now. There's zero pressure to resolve your identity. The whole practice is just to take a breath and feel into that sense of an underlying wholeness that's always there, right beneath all the fragments and all the conflict.
So we'll leave you with this to reflect on. Thinking back on your dreams, what recurring figure or place or feeling, what shadow keeps showing up? Maybe it's calling for your attention, inviting you back to a part of yourself that you've forgotten.
And we would genuinely love to hear about it. Share your insights, your dream moments, any experiences of remembering you've had down in the comments. Let's start building a community around this shared exploration.
And if you want to see all these ideas put into action in a story, you can follow Phillip Aisling's journey at philipaisling.com.
And of course, if you found this explainer valuable, please follow, like, and share it. The more of us we can bring into this conversation about moving beyond division, the better.
And definitely join us next time, because we are asking a massive question. Is humanity just stuck repeating these endless, painful cycles of division? Or is all the intensity we're feeling right now actually a sign of a much larger collective evolution that is trying to be born? We will see you then.